Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Welcome to another edition of Vantage Point, a very special Vantage Point coming to you from Nasrec in Soweto, where we're covering the 5th ANC National Policy Conference. Today we hope to speak to more NEC members who will give us more ideas on what's happening in the conference halls. Most of the conference halls are closed to the media at the moment, and they do have press briefings a bit later on in the day where they discuss what was discussed and what was put through to these conferences. So we are going to be trying to speak to some of the NEC members from the committees who will be presenting today, and the media center is quite full today because being it a Sunday, so a lot of the Sunday papers are out and the ANC spokespeople are all around us here. So let's see what we can do today and get some of the interviews and some comment from people in the ANC. I'm joined now by Minister Naledi Pandor, who is also the chairperson of the Health and Education Subcommittee for the ANC. Minister, assalamu alaikum and welcome to ITV.
Wa alaikum salam, and wa alaikum salam to all of your viewers as well.
Minister, you sit on a very important committee, Health and Education. We know what has been happening in the country the past few months with regards to the fees must fall, and also with education, with the Esidimeni saga, with the mortuary saga. What concrete policies will the ANC be putting forward to ensure that we don't have such issues going forward?
Well, some of these issues are in the policy discussion document of the African National Congress, and we hope through the resolutions that will be taken by the commissions that will meet today and tomorrow, that will begin to indicate the actual steps that we will take. Already on Esidimeni, government has pronounced and actions have been taken, and we will continue to work at improving our health services for those who need mental health support. Much more must be done and will be done by our government. On the matter of free education, we are committed to free higher education for the poor. At the school level, we already have more than 70% of young children attending public school for free. So we've made advances, and it's important that what we recognize as we discuss is we're discussing how we improve on the successes we have achieved thus far. And so it will be important for us as we deliberate to ensure that the steps that we take are committed to actually addressing the ongoing concerns that young students have and that families that are poor have as well.
Minister, with regards to education, when we speak about primary and secondary education, some of the things that have been taught in the schools are very Eurocentric. What will the ANC be putting forward with regards to decolonizing education? I know we like to use the word decolonizing, they're buzzwords at the moment, but I think it's also important that our children are taught relevant subject matter to the country and to the continent.
Absolutely, and this is one of the things that we have been discussing, and I know within the higher education sector a closer look is being taken at what is taught. So it's not in any way to interfere with academic freedom, but certainly to ensure that we don't prepare young people who think they'll be working on Wall Street. They'll be working in South Africa. Some of them will be small and medium-sized business owners in quite a challenging context of Africa. They may need to know languages other than South African languages in order to be successful business people. So we must encourage, as part of the curriculum, the learning of Swahili, the learning of other languages that are spoken on the African continent, so that we are able to create the kind of young graduate who is fully acquainted with the development issues confronting us and with the perspectives of Africa.
Minister, with regards to education, with regards to language at schools, would it be feasible, or would the ANC look at making one of the, besides English and Afrikaans, an African language compulsory?
We already have encouraged increased attention to African languages, and of course we've seen University of KwaZulu-Natal has taken forward steps in terms of higher education. At the school level, I think it's still work to be done, but what's exciting is many schools have now opted to introduce access to one of the vernacular languages of South Africa in order to allow opportunities to young people to learn more than just English or Afrikaans.
Minister, finally, as a Muslim minister, your advice to Muslims who seem to be disheartened by the ANC. If we remember going back many years, we look at the Dr. Dadus, the Ahmad Timols, the late Ahmad Kathrada, and the Kachalia family, many other families who were involved in ANC politics. Do you feel that Muslims have become a bit marginalized out of the ANC, or have they done it out of their own choice? Because we've seen so-called Muslim areas have voted with the opposition now. So from the ANC perspective, what more can be done for the Muslims to go back to their political home, which for so many years they were part of?
Well, I think for our Ummah, the African National Congress has been the organization that they supported through most of their lives. The Muslim community made a tremendous contribution to the struggle for freedom. So I think they should embrace our freedom as theirs. And this organization, the African National Congress, as their organization, we are admired as one of the countries in which we freely practice our religion. And in fact, we have many compatriots from the rest of the Muslim world who prefer to send their children to our higher education institutions because their children are not treated badly because of their religion. So we have religious freedom, and we are so happy that we can freely practice our religion in our country, South Africa, as Muslims, and that we are treated as equal to anyone. So I would say that as the African National Congress, we need to address this matter of feeling somewhat excluded from the ANC, which is the traditional home of the majority of the Muslim community. So there's work for us to do as ANC members and leadership to draw in communities and membership that has previously been with us and to address any concerns that they might have.
Minister, thank you so much. Jazakallah for your time. Assalamu alaikum.
Afwan, thank you very much for the opportunity, and wa alaikum salam.
I'm delighted to be joined now by Minister Edna Molewa, who deals more with the international relations side of ANC Policy. Minister, welcome to ITV.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, ITV, and good morning to your viewers.
Minister, South Africa does not exist in a cocoon. We have relations with everybody in the world. We just one part of a major world. What is ANC policy going forward as being part of the global community?
Our policies that appear in the policy document that we have drafted are not quite changing much. We're still saying that, yes, South Africa is part of the global world, particularly the African continent. We're spelling out the evolution of our relationship as a country that really respects internationalism, as our leader O.R. Tambo was a great internationalist, and having taught us to actually develop this policy and stay within this policy. So Africa is we are part of Africa. We are part of the world. And in that regard, in the policy statement, we are saying we need to have a stable continent, free from wars, free from conflicts. And it is for that reason that in the paper we're saying we will continue to, through our government, play a role in the peacekeeping, peace building, peace finding, ensuring that there's stability in nations. And in that regard, we're already participating in 14 nations on the continent, bringing peace, because that's a prerequisite to economic development, to social prospects and success, to also cultural linkages that we must have on the continent. We're paying attention to the issue of Morocco, Western Sahara. In the document, we're paying attention to the issue of Israel, Palestine occupation, those two occupations, and continuing to respect the sovereignty of nations, but saying there must not be any country that's invaded. Sovereignty must be respected. So we are continuing with a campaign and ensuring that the people of Palestine are freed, the people of Western Sahara are completely freed. On the outside, we are continuing to build relations with BRICS and solidifying those relations. The BRICS bank has already been started with. We're now doing the chapter of South Africa, which will serve the continent, by the way, a muscle that's strong enough to continue to help us financially to link the projects that we have identified of infrastructure that our presidents are leading on. President Zuma has been identified as one actually asked to lead the infrastructure committee that deals with integration of our continent. So the funds will come handy to help us in that regard. We also would need to discuss the rating agency of BRICS. As a new thing, and obviously this policy conference will have to discuss that matter. We're looking at the emergence of the Brexit, and in that regard, this policy conference must say, how do we relate with that? Of course, we had to meet the British people and find out what are their views in relation to their movement, that is Brexit, and whether they will still continue to relate with South Africa. They have assured us that yes, indeed, they will not even allow any form of disruption by a day. So the trade flows will still need to happen and continue to happen as they were. We are watching the space in some of the European countries where the right-wing governments are beginning to move into space. And this is the reason why we are saying in this, the theme of this paper is this fast-changing world, that's ever-changing world with sense shifting so fast that we need to guard and put our eyes on it. And this is, the theme that goes along that direction. America has now got a new president who thinks differently from all the other previous presidents, especially the recent past. And we are really concerned about that because he has not yet pronounced on his policy on for the African continent. But so far, taking it from where he has already looked at Cuba and so forth, we are really concerned. And we're watching that, and we're making a point here that we will continue to monitor that part of the work here.
Minister, with regards to Israel and Palestine, which is a very a subject that many Muslims really identify within this country, and the ANC has always had a policy of a two-state solution, and also the policy of standing up with the Palestinian people. Will this policy carry on going forward? And one more thing on this, reports have been emerging of people leaving the country via the Israeli national carrier and being victimized at OR Tambo International Airport by security services. Does that not affect our sovereignty, where foreign forces, foreign security agents are speaking and intimidating people leaving to fly to Israel?
It is very, very bad. Very bad indeed that nobody must be intimidated. South Africa and the ANC policy does remain what we're tabling here, and we hope and we do think that the delegates will still stick to this policy. Two states solution, no occupation of Palestine. In other words, where there's occupied territories, where there's campaign, we will continue to campaign against that because it is wrong. People being ill-treated, jailed, as we saw it happening these past days, we've made our voices very loud and clear heard that we do not want to see that happening, and we're really condemning that. Even the security forces that are intimidating people, even from the OR area, we are condemning that fully. What we are also doing, by the way, behind closed doors, is to get the parties within Palestine themselves to begin to work together, because that harmony is important. It is extremely important and difficult, in fact, let me put it this way, to negotiate with another force when you yourself, you're not quite speaking from the same, singing from the same hymn book. So we've had the Palestinian parties here in South Africa, a whole lot of them in South Africa, negotiating and them getting in one room to sort out whatever challenge that they have. And they've met also outside South Africa and other countries on several occasions, because that's actually a very important prerequisite for them to be able to begin any facilitation that South Africa may do or any other country may do would require them to be united first. And that's the work that we are doing there as well.
Minister, finally, we see in the Middle East at the moment the issue with Qatar and the rest of some GCC countries, as well as the situation in Syria, where for 6 years now, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed or displaced. ANC policy with regards to a position taken there for a ceasefire to be agreed in the area.
Indeed, we also emphasize ceasefire to be agreed to. It is important that in any situation, for people to begin to talk, there's ceasefire, there's hostility, no hostilities, and in that regard, we're emphasizing and raising our voice that hostility must be, there must be ceasefire, and there must be continuation of discussion. The situation is quite complex in that part of the world. There are many permutations of various other, issues that needs to be looked at and unpacked quite thoroughly. If you look at, for instance, the Turkey issues, the Kurdish issues, and the Qatari issues and so forth, they impact on one another, and each one of them is so complex that it really requires ourselves as countries of the world to sit together and assist and work very closely with the people in that part of the world to actually resolve these ongoing challenges. For 7 years now, 7 years is too long, indeed.
Minister, thank you so much for your time and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me, and thank you.
That was Minister Edna Molewa speaking more on the role of the ANC policy with regards to international policy. I'm delighted to be joined now by Gauteng ANC Chairperson Paul Mashatile. Mr. Mashatile, thank you so much for joining us on ITV.
Yes, how are you?
We know the Gauteng ANC have been very critical of certain certain things that's been happening, and there have been accusations that the PEC needs to be disbanded following last year's election. What has been the Gauteng ANC's reception at this conference?
Well, as you know, we are the host province. We have received other delegates warmly. The mood is okay. There's nothing about dissolving the ANC PEC. We have a very strong organization here in Gauteng. We have prepared very well for the policy conference. Our delegates are busy expressing the views that we worked out in our own provincial policy conference. So we are currently in the commissions. We are debating the issues of monopoly capital. We are debating how we're going to restructure the ANC to make it stronger, to make it reconnect with the people, to bring back the integrity of the ANC and make sure that we leave this conference united, stronger, and be able to win the confidence of South Africans going forward.
Following last year's election in Gauteng, where ANC lost many metros, do you fear for 2019, where ANC could lose the province of Gauteng if policies that are not pro-poor, or if things such as state capture are not dealt with? Are you fearful that the ANC could lose Gauteng in 2019?
Well, we are of course concerned that we are not as strong as we should be, and that's why it's important for us to deal with the issues that people are raising, and we're doing exactly that. I think if we look at the way the Gauteng government is working, it's doing extremely well. We're addressing issues all over the place, and I'm confident that I think if we work the way we do, there shouldn't be any fear of losing Gauteng in 2019.
And finally, the ANC in Mogale City have retaken over as with the mayorship of the city. It was one of the cities that the ANC did lose in the last election. What's happening there now? Because apparently budgets haven't been passed, and the council seems to be a hung council with 38 to 39 or things like that. Are you concerned, and what will the provincial government be doing to assist those who are missing out on services in Mogale City?
Well, the new mayor has asked for another 14 days for them to be able to pass the budget. If they fail, the provincial government will have to intervene to make sure that the administration is working. There are provisions within the law that allows us to intervene and put in an administration that will make sure that the people of Mogale are being serviced.
Chairman, thank you so much for your time and congratulations to the ANC for hosting this conference, the Gauteng ANC especially, very well organized. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That was Gauteng ANC Chairperson Paul Mashatile speaking to us on the Gauteng ANC and some of the policies and some of the issues that the Gauteng ANC have been mentioning and some of the issues that they have said could deter them from winning the next election. As you know, they did lose 3 or 4 metros in the last local government election, but speaking to Chairman Paul Mashatile, he seems confident that if the ANC work together, they could make a difference and keep on to power in the province, which is South Africa's richest province. The last few days have seen attacks on journalists in the country, especially in the Gauteng province by the Black First, Land First movement, where they camped outside the journalist Peter Bruce's house, and then yesterday letters, or the day before, letters were put out threatening certain journalists in the country. To discuss media freedom broadly, I'm delighted to be joined now by Professor Susan Boyson from Wits University. Professor, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure to speak to you.
Professor, as I mentioned in the intro, we've seen very unsavory acts taking place. But if there's one thing that we know, the ANC have stood for media freedom over the years. They've always had a free media. And once we can also notice it here, the help that we receive from the ANC, getting interviews and things like that. But should we as journalists be worried following the threats made by an organization like Black First, Land First?
And probably yes, because in South Africa we see this duality. On the one hand, there is the encouragement of free media or permitting the space for media to operate freely. On the other hand, there are endless efforts to try and influence and direct journalists as well. We see in one of the party's discussion documents for this conference, there are questions as to how about media tribunals and getting more accountability from the media, by the media, and so there are those pressures too. And the ANC is coming under more and more pressure and becoming more sensitive to media being critical. The documents here for the conference they're very moderate in their formulations, but President's speech, at least in one place, referred to the media and noted that the media come together with opposition parties and they project some things as normal as if that is common practice. So there is continuous scrutiny of the media in the ANC's deliberations, and there are almost always pressures for internally in the organization to get more control over the media. But then perhaps they operate by this threat, having the sword dangling there. Maybe if you do not behave, we can do more, certainly. And about the specific protest, for example, at Peter Bruce's house, the police there were standing by, seemingly maintaining peace. I don't think there was a threat of anything else. There were a few scuffles there, but the police actually didn't maintain those rights of that individual journalist editor not to be intimidated. And we're not saying he is completely above board in everything he does, but let any politician be subjected to the same kind of action. And yes, so there are these dual standards in many ways. And here at this conference, yes, there are interviews that are being facilitated. Simultaneously, yesterday, we saw a briefing by Minister Jeff Radebe, essentially on government business. So that was disconcerting to notice. There was a big fusion there of government and party, state party business. We were presented essentially with a government report, and then he admitted, being questioned, that no, this is not being discussed. Yes, they trust that these ideas about National Development Plan, the NDP, will also be endorsed in conference. So that is a big thing, that fusion of party and state. And yes, there were briefings. As somebody who has been monitoring as an observer these conferences, most of them, it's interesting. The information is fewer and far between. In the past, there were regular briefings right from the word go. Here is much more water trading process, and all the substantive policy proposals will actually media will only be briefed probably only on Tuesday.
Just thinking about separating party from government, we do know the ANC, other party in government. How difficult could it be for the ANC to separate party party policy from government policy when we know they are the ruling party?
It's a fine but very, very important line. Obviously, the policy cannot be separated. The policy has to move over. It is the governing party, and their policy must move over. It comes largely problematic when it is state institutions that are being used for party purposes. That is where we need to draw the line.
Do you feel sometimes the media treat the ANC a bit differently compared to how they treat the opposition parties? The ANC have constantly accused the media of being part of the opposition. What's your feeling on on comments coming like that from the ANC?
It is an issue that's of oversight. The media in South Africa are a huge part of oversight, and it's media, it's civil society, big part in oversight, and opposition parties, obviously. So there are often convergences of influence, of information dissemination, what is to be said, but essentially I think all political parties are interrogated to the same kind of scrutiny by the media. Good, there are differentiations between different parts of the media, yes, but if one takes it collectively, every political party gets its turn to be ruthlessly scrutinized, and that's a great compliment for media in general.
Professor Boyson, thank you so much for your time. Really interesting points you've put through, and the media the media are a very important part of any democracy, and basically the media do keep governments in check in most countries.
They absolutely do, and we cannot underestimate that role.
Thank you so much. It was Professor Susan Boyson from Wits University just speaking to us on the role of the media with regards when you look at what's happened in the last few days with attacks by certain organizations and certain journalists. Okay, that's all the time we have for this evening. I hope you enjoyed the show. I think some really important points put through, especially on the international relations side from Minister Edna Molewa, as well as from Minister Naledi Pandor, who spoke about the role Muslims can play and the roles that Muslims have played in the ANC, in the liberation of South Africa. And it will be interesting to see which of these policies will be adopted by conference. Remember, you can join us again tomorrow and for the duration of the conference on ITV. Remember to follow us on Twitter, where we bring you updates, ITV_SA. And so we'll bring you updates from the conference as it happens, when it happens. From me, Mohammed Chinara, and Ellen Shuma, fi amanillah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.